seem like only yesterday when you welcomed us into your home and we shared a view of the changing world, and we hope to share it with you for the next 40 years.
40 years ago, a new business opened here at 864 King West, but it was much more than just another business. It was part of an industry that would change our lives. The first television station in the country had signed on just 2 years earlier, and now the people of Kitchener-Waterloo were seeing themselves on TV for the first time. Television is so much a part of our lives today, we take it for granted. But back then, it was like a miracle. People would crowd around shop windows just to watch the flickering images inside. Our Miss Brooks made them laugh. Ed Sullivan kept them entertained. Saturday night hockey with Foster Hewitt had every little boy dreaming of the NHL. And in the midst of all of this, the CKCO personalities had their own special place.
These are the sights and sounds of our time.
It was March of 1954.
From Capitol Hill came the top story of the week.
Television in Canada began in September of 1952, and the CBC went on the air in Toronto and in Montreal, I think a week or two before it started in Toronto. In Toronto, there was a grand ceremony on this particular evening of, I don't remember the date in September, but it was in September. And at this grand ceremony, the studio was full of VIPs, and I was there because I had joined the CBC that day to start working on television, having started my career in radio a few years before.
There's a new vehicle cruising through the streets of Kitchener, Ontario this week, indicating something new for the area. It's the mobile unit of Canada's newest television station, CKCO-TV. Kitchener, population about 45,000. This is its main street, King Street.
On the 15th of December of 1953, I came to Kitchener. We secured a building, which is the building we're presently in. We built a transmitter, which was on the air by Christmas Day of 1953 with a test pattern. And we spent a lot of time promoting dealers with getting receivers into the marketplace. This wasn't as tough as it might seem because, in fact, right from day one, we were competing with two Buffalo stations, the CBC's Toronto station, and in the late November period, the London station went on the air. So there were a number of stations around, and we were kind of running to get on the air so that these people didn't get too big a head start on us.
And now on top of Baden Hill, 7 miles west of Kitchener, the highest point of land between Montreal and Windsor, stands a 200-foot tower which beams television to a potential audience of almost 500,000.
Our technical facilities really weren't in place until mid-month of February, but they weren't operational until 2 days before the 1st of March. I insisted that there was going to be a rehearsal. This was on the 27th of February, I guess. And I was in the control room. I wasn't doing any of the operations at that point, but I was in the control room, obviously hovering over all that was going on. And so the cue came, put the first slide on, and there was a black on the screen. Everybody looked immediately over into the film playback area, and there was the slide projector with a hurl of smoke coming out of it, which was not the way we had planned the rehearsal to go.
Canada's third privately owned television station to go on the air. It's linked with the television network between Toronto and London, Ontario. The Central Ontario Television Limited has already put $500,000 into the station.
By March 1, the projector was repaired, and we did go on the air, and unlike the CBC, we didn't get the slides on upside down and backwards. interestingly, the fellow who had put the slide on upside down and backwards on the CBC was working for us on our opening night. In any case, that evening went really quite well.
CKCO had no live cameras on March 1st, no studios, and no microwave link to the CBC network. So why the rush to get on the air? It was for the most Canadian of reasons. The hockey playoffs were coming, and Central Ontario Television was determined to go live.
We did that by utilizing some equipment that fortunately Famous Players had acquired in Toronto, and using that we were on the air third week or fourth week in March with hockey and in the middle of an ice storm. The ice, at least the ice kept forming, and our receiver was on the city's water tower, which was in our backyard. The ice caused the microwave dish to go out of alignment, and this meant somebody had to realign it or we were not going to have the rest of the hockey game. We had the first period and then the picture disappeared. One of our people, Joe McIntyre, simply put his coat on, ran outside, and on a very icy steel ladder ran up the side of the water tower and readjusted the dish in the sleet with the ice, and we were back on the air. Joe fortunately came back down again safely, but it was one of those exciting, very tense few minutes that were a part of broadcasting in the 1950s.
The CBC television network.
But it wasn't long before everything was ready and CKCO began a tradition of local programming.
CKCO-TV, Channel 13, Kitchener-Waterloo. Speedy Alka-Seltzer presents News Desk, a roundup of news at home and around the world, reported by Alan Hodge.
Headlining tonight's news, first of all, a Kitchener woman was killed today in a highway accident. And on number 7 highway to Guelph, the explosion of an old bridge. And we'll have the news in just a moment, but first of all, here's some good news for you from Alka-Seltzer.
We started with a news and sportcast at the same time as it runs today, and then we wanted an interview show, again, for its community value. And with the first group that we interviewed were the Red Cross. And who was the spokesperson for the Red Cross? It was Elaine Cole. And I was very impressed. I thought that, you know, here was a lady who had never been in front of a camera before, and yet was relaxed, was comfortable, and had that magic that good performers have when they appear on television. And so we talked with our program people and suggested that they take a look at creating a program that Elaine Cole could host. In the latter part of June of 1954, the Elaine Cole Show began.
Elaine was very nice to work with, very easy to get along with. We just got along tremendously, and she loved music herself. She loved popular music, jazz music, she loved classical music and all that. And she had one particular song that she always used to ask me to play for her, and that was Up the Lazy River. She just loved that song, and sometimes she'd say, "Hey, Pat, I need a pepper-upper today to get me going here. How about playing Up the Lazy River?" And she was a great music lover.
Elaine's efforts for CKCO established CKCO as the kind of community television station that it was and is today. She was the person who established that personality for CKCO. And when I got involved with the television station, I found that Elaine was the same person off the air as she was on the air. She never minced words. You knew up front how Elaine felt about things, but she was so genuine and so warm and so professional that, yeah, she was a very first-class person.
When Famous Players applied for a TV license in Kitchener back in 1953, they followed a company tradition. With their movie theaters in towns and cities across the country, they always looked for a local partner, people who knew the community and what it was interested in. With television in Kitchener, those local partners were Carl Pollock and the owners of CKCR Radio, the Little and Mitchell families. Eventually, Electrohome, the Pollock family's manufacturing company, became the sole owner of the station. But one thing never changed: CKCO's emphasis on people, news people, performers, and hosts that our audiences would welcome into their homes. As Carl Pollock said, people are our most important asset.
Now it's time for BAZAAR, Canadian television's big daytime show. Now here's your BAZAAR host, Reg Selner.
Well, good afternoon. Pleasant Friday it is, too. We have to mention this. The girls from Smiles and Chuckles came down.
We entertained busloads practically every day. We'd have 100, 150 people right here in the studio. There was Grace Lawson, who was kind of the co-host of the program. We had George Cadwell, who originally played the organ, and then he left, and then Pat Ludwig came in. And there was a cooking show.
CKCO-TV.
And time to come into the kitchen with your favorite chef, Mrs. S., and her cooking aide, Reg Selner.
There's just one other thing that this combination of vegetables does not have, and I know Tom Rafferty and, Elaine Cole, if she were here, and also this assistant chef would never forgive me if I didn't add half a pound of mushrooms.
We had about a 90-some share of the audience. So there weren't too many people watching anything else.
Number 4. Where's number 4? And what is your name, man? Mrs. Harry Burns? Burns, good name. Isn't she sweet? Look at that, eh? How about that? You know, all the nice girls are married, Mrs. S. I don't think I'll get married.
The sponsor actually bought 1 minute. We had 1 minute commercials at that time, and it was just a matter of what you were doing, and then you just try to go into commercials.
And I'm going to use some of Vern's very wonderful Spam along with our red cabbage in a very fine salad that the whole family can't help but like.
As we said, there's ham in Spam, and when you open your can of Spam, there's a little key ring on here. Do you see that? Just don't turn that away, because if you get 2 of these key rings, along with $2, you can send it to Burns Figurine Lamp, Calgary, Alberta, and we have a little lamp here that you can get for $2, plus 2 labels from any Burns product.
When the circus was in town, we had things like elephants, and it was live. Before they perform in a circus, there are certain things that the trainer does to an animal to induce whatever things they have to get rid of, so they don't embarrass people when they're watching. Well, obviously, the last elephant on this chain wasn't treated well enough. And as they passed through the door, holding each other's tail, the last one sprayed about 30 people in the audience. And it smelled pretty bad, and there's not much you can do in that point. And I forget what the cleaning bill was, but we had to take care of everything.
Most programming in the early days was done live. The only way to record it was on kinescope, taking a film camera and shooting the monitor. But the results were less than wonderful. For news, some film was shot in the field, but it was expensive and processing was time-consuming.
We only had processing of film once a day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so if it happened after 4 o'clock, it was dead until the next day. And we had wire services, British United Press and Broadcast News. So we read a lot of stories on the air, live, sitting there, without much in the way of visual background. We did cover some events at night, accidents and that sort of thing, with Polaroid cameras. And we would staple the Polaroid picture onto a little card called a ballop, and it went into a machine in Telecine, and that could be shown on the air.
CBS Labs, along with a new company from California called the Ampex Company. And the combination of the two had developed this idea of recording on a 2-inch wide magnetic tape. And they were able with that to demonstrate, in black and white, mind you, but to demonstrate a picture being recorded and being played back immediately. The whole industry was absolutely agog. It was such a dramatic change.
It's been a wonderful asset. In fact, I think over the length of time I've been in television, that the advent of videotape in all its forms has been the greatest single technological change. Some might say satellites, but videotape has just totally altered the way everything is done.
The CTV network started in 1961. Because of the duplication of CBC signals in the area from Toronto, London, and Hamilton, CKCO decided to join the new network and offer viewers an alternative.
We now are a very regional southwestern Ontario, central Ontario signal from Toronto, Windsor to North Bay, and we have those transmitters and we offer that service primarily because we are the CTV affiliate and bring the network service to that geographic area.
Our staff members actually live and work in those communities, so they know what is of interest to those areas. And they are running around with their cameras every day, doing the stories that affect their communities. And when it comes back into the station, what we do is we package segments of the newscast that go back only to those regions. So the people in the Muskoka region are seeing during our newscasts a portion of that newscast, not the whole thing, but a portion of it that relates exclusively to their region. And in the rest of the newscast, they'll see what's happening elsewhere across the province and around the world as well.
I definitely remember when we got our first color TV, and it was Christmas. I think we had just moved to Cambridge, and I was, I think, 8 years old, and we all went downstairs, and there it was, sitting there, this great big, humongous color TV. So we'd always had an old black and white, but I'll never forget getting the color TV. It was just a mind-blowing experience for me.
Canada's centennial year marked the start of color television in Canada. As soon as the government regulators gave the okay, CKCO began the switch to color. First, the transmitter was upgraded to color, then the projectors. National commercials came in on color film. CKCO's photographers started shooting in color, and live color cameras in the studio soon followed.
That the Red Jackets were initiated when color television was just coming to the marketplace, and of course red is a very bright primary color, and people with their sets would tune in and say, "Ooh, this is something we really want to watch because it is so colorful." And they became essentially a trademark for the television station. When I was offered the job at CKCO back in 1976, I said, "Well, I have to wear one of those silly red jackets if I accept this job." And the answer was, "Yes, that's part of the job, and you know, if you want the paycheck, you wear the red jacket." But I thought, well, it can't last much longer. Well, I think it was the late 80s that we finally got, I'll say, got rid of the red jackets, because I always saw it as a negative. I thought if you're trying to present a credible, informative newscast, dressing up like someone in a band might dress is probably not the image that you want to project. I think that when we did leave the red jackets behind, though, we did attract a wider and broader audience. I know our ratings increased, and the jackets certainly, you know, made their impression with viewers and left some fond memories for many people.
In your cafeteria, it probably isn't necessary to post a sign asking you not to tap dance. But here, it's actually a reminder of how involved we are in the community. Over the years, hundreds of excited young performers have waited patiently in this room for their turn in front of the cameras. They may be all grown up now, but hundreds of young performers still treasure the memory of their appearance on Talent Showcase. And it was only one of several CKCO shows that starred Big Al over the years.
When we were, you know, really just 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, we'd all run home for lunch because that's when Big Al was on. And, you know, as you know, Big Al had the the signature trademark, stand by because the cartoons are coming your way. And he'd always point, and we'd always sit there and watch it.
Well, Big Al was a legend in his own time because he was one of those broadcast pioneers. Al had grown up in the radio industry, had worked for the Thompson Group in Northern Ontario as a radio sales rep, had been an entertainer, a band leader, one of those guys that climbed into a car every night and went from community to community to community to play big band music back in the 20s and 30s. I mean, Al was an entertainer.
I think that, if I can remember right, Al and I started on that show the same day. Before that, Al was working, I believe, in TV sales.
And I guess it was Bruce Lawson, who was one of our earlier program managers, the late Bruce Lawson, looked at Al and thought about it and said, you know what, we need somebody to host a cartoon show every day at noon hour. And that's how Al got started, and that's how he became known as Big Al.
If you're all set, here is our birthday theme.
But a highlight of Big Al for me was, you know, waiting to see if he'd put that birthday picture on. Because I remember one of my best friends at the time, a fellow by the name of John Underhill, to this day, I remember Big Al opening that book with all the birthday cards on, and there was John Underhill posing with his dog. You know, and Big Al was showing his picture on TV on his birthday, and I never had my picture on.
I followed a group of friends home from school. I was supposed to keep going. I lived over on George Street, which was about 7 blocks from here. Instead, I followed the crowd into Big Al's ranch party and told them it was my birthday, so that I could stand in the birthday lineup, which I'd seen everyone else do with those shiny little silvery cones on their heads and digging into the treasure chest.
One was Big Al's ranch party. Another one was Big Al's fort, where every day when the show was starting, some little boy or girl would come out and they'd pull the cord up to pull the flag up, and then they'd have to tie it around this hook. And then in the meantime, there'd be a bugle being piped out into the studio. Everybody's quiet, and you hear this bugle going on while the kid's pulling the rope up. They're pulling the flag up. Anyway, the one day, there was a little boy, I believe it was, and he was pulling the flag up and so on like that. And he was having an awful time trying to tie the knot or something with the cord to make it stay there. And it finally got to the point where the bugle had finished playing, and it was dead silence in the studio. So Al's standing there watching him, and his comment was, he said, "What are you doing, Sonny? Making a sweater? Knit one, pearl two?"
Yeah, he was one of those local television personalities, and every television community in this country, as well as the United States, has, and over the years have had, their own version of Al Jones. A local personality who does local television, and by the way, you know, out of that effort, developed a really good audience.
In the early days, we started a Canadian bandstand program here on Saturday afternoons, patterned after the American bandstand. And it ran for, I don't know, a couple hours on a Saturday afternoon, live, of course, in the studio with music, and young people would come in, couples and singles, and they'd dance to the latest records.
The show was hosted by a number of people over the years, but for the boomers, the host they remember is Grant Hoffman. A concert promoter, owner of Colonial Records, and host of a popular rock and roll show on CKCO-TV Radio, Grantley was a natural for a teen show.
Everybody wants to be on camera, but nobody wants to be first. Certainly in a dance floor situation, you know what it's like at high school, wallflowers, girls on one side, guys on the other. But since Arlene and I were hams anyway, we decided to be the first couple up to dance, and then after things started to warm up, and that's when they actually started to tape the show. I didn't realize what a geek I looked like. You know, it was terrible. I mean, when I see some of that old footage, it's nice to see other people dressed and dancing that way. But when you come across your stuff from that far back, it is absolutely embarrassing.
Bing bong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom. Flip flop, up up, meeny miny moo. Boppity stoppity, romper room. Hey diddle little diddle dum diddy do. You be a doobie, zoo. Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Tip tap, pitter pat, granny cat too. Rooty toot, gimble, loopy loo. Boppity stoppity, romper room. Romper
romp room in 1976, and your teacher was Miss Kathy Sackville. Melanie, how did you enjoy being in romp room and playing the drum and leading the band?
Oh, well, one of my stronger memories of being on romp room was waiting to see who the lucky person would be who got chosen to lead the procession.
Well, you did a good job when it was your turn, that's for sure. And Natalie, you came to romp room a few months after your sister. You also shared some excellent ideas with Miss Kathy and Wiggly Will about friendship and about how children feel when their friends move away. We're going to listen to that.
That ever happened to you?
Yeah. We can go over and say, don't cry. We'll be your friend.
That's very nice, Natalie. I'm sure that that friend would appreciate it.
CKCO produced Romper Room as a CTV network program for 20 years. It had the longest run of any program on the CTV network. In the early days of CTV, part of the strategy was that all of the Canadian programs in the CTV network schedule were produced by the affiliates. Not much was done by the independent production industry. All the books that were used in the series were Canadian books done by Canadian authors. I mean, the program was pure Canadian. Concept came out of the States, but the program was Canadian. And yeah, that's one of the highlights of the 40 years, I think, of CKCO history, the ability of this station to be able to produce a program, and a quality program for preschool children for 20 continuous years.
I see. Hi, Tricia. There you are. I see Tricia and Lawrence. I see.
Listen, you missed it by 1 year. I'm going to send you a note, thank you for answering the phone this morning. I do wish you'd dial us in some morning, though, okay? Because we're on the air from 11:30 to 12 o'clock noon. It's a very friendly show. It's very informal.
Sometimes, would you accept 538 and 842? Now, statistically, I have written this down for you. 13 degrees, 56 Fahrenheit. Humidity is really very low.
This is going to be tough, Bucky. It's going to be weird. It's going to be strange, yeah, but he's gone now. He doesn't want to be on television. Okay, he won the money, though. How many letters in the Polynesian alphabet? The answer is 12, and the guy gets $50. Are you back here? You won the money. Where are you?
I told her I had a surprise, and you're the surprise.
Oh, yes, how
She's
nice.
21.
21.
21 years ago today, I became a mother for the first time.
Okay, let's see now. Now, you look like you're a very attractive young lady. At what
Thank
age
you.
were you married, my dear?
Never mind.
See, you're such a good talker, sir, that our 5 minutes is gone already.
Johnny shows, whatever Johnny was involved in, yeah, they were different. They were off the wall because John's just that kind of wonderful off-the-wall personality. He's very creative, and he was able to add a dimension to the programs that he was involved in here on CKCO that would have only happened because it was Johnny.
Myself and Odie, this is my third shooter. I've got see, the fellow's waving. I've got 3 shooters. I've got Bucky, Dan, the cameraman, sometimes John Arias, and this is our newest child. Hi there.
How you doing, John?
I do a show called Trivia Company on CKCO Television. We just hired Odie. How long you been with us now?
I've been with you for quite a while, John, but I never worked with you before.
Odie is unmarried.
Oh.
Are you a married person?
No.
I'm sorry?
What do you want?
What do you think? Nice young lady. Nice young lady.
She is a very nice young lady.
$50 in cash for the correct answer.
My kids used to shudder. They said, "You have to do that show." They're going to high school, and people would, the kids at school would refer to Bowling for Dollars. You know, I didn't mind the show. It got a lot of recognition. But Bowling for Dollars was another one of those formats. You know, you looked at it and you say, well, why is this thing getting as many ratings? There's how many rating points as it does. But year in and year out, it had a good audience pull.
Is it good? You have won the jackpot. Bill Sultan, come on over here. 3 in a row.
It had a special something, really, that people picked up on and enjoyed watching. The ones I found very easy to deal with were A, senior citizens who had no pretensions about themselves. They accepted it. That was a chance to win a little pocket money. And some of the people who were handicapped. To me, those people were about as genuine as you possibly could get. And then you had the people who really took it as probably a crusade, that it was their right to go out there and win the big jackpot, and the money would just keep building up and the pressure would keep building up, and they'd get on there and they'd become a part of the scene. It was one thing to be a competitive bowler, but it was another thing getting on camera. As soon as you saw the red tally light go on, some of these people would freeze up. We had a competitor, the late Elmer Hole, who was an excellent bowler. He competed at the CNE. He won lots of money as a professional bowler. He got on and blew it. So it became sort of the byword of the whole thing. Like, you don't have to be a professional bowler. You just have to be lucky and able to cope with the pressure of television.
Walter's chemistry was wonderful, because Walter's just that kind of exuberant, outstanding person, and it's wonderful to see him all of a sudden be accepted on the international music scene for his years that he's put into polka music with his double Grammys, and you know, that makes all of us who know Walter very proud.
It's polka time with Canada's King of Polka, Walter Ostanak, and his show band.
And Walter had his groupies, and by that I mean polka groupies. There were people who would follow Walter wherever he played, and being part of his television show became a very big demand item. And we did the show on location, of course, for many years. We did it at Transylvania Club, we did it at the Waterloo Motor Inn, we did it here in the studio, and yeah, that was one of our highlights. It was an exciting time.
From Kitchener-Waterloo, the 1992 Oktoberfest Parade. A Thanksgiving
We did Santa Claus parades, we've done centennial parades, and we've done special parades. This station probably has compiled a handbook on how to do parades. I would venture to say there is not another station in North America, maybe in the world, that has done as many parades of all kinds than CKCO-TV. Well, the Kinsman Auction, as I understand it, is one of the longest running special events that television has mounted over the years. And the amazing part about the whole thing is the format hasn't changed that much over the 30-some-odd years. The event really is an oddity in today's television market, because most stations wouldn't even attempt to put it on. They wouldn't even consider something like that. And that's what makes it so unusual that a station like CKCO would get involved that long and still continue to carry the thing over all those years. And I think that speaks well for the involvement that this station has had in community affairs.
When Channel 42 in Chatham had a Kinsman auction, I went down there and helped the local Kinsman fellows for 3 or 4 years perhaps, until they moved it elsewhere and decided to take it on themselves. But that was a lot of fun. Met some nice people and helped out in the community a little bit.
Let's face it, we've been very actively involved with a lot of community stuff that most other stations wouldn't even consider.
She used to get me in some dandy spots, but I love the girl. We got along just excellent. It was, for all those years, we never had one disagreeing words or anything like that. We had a lot of fun together. We did a lot, and we had a lot of laughs together, but we also had sad times together, because Betty was an emotional girl. She really was. She loved to laugh, but she could cry too when things weren't right up to par.
At first, all her efforts were, of course, channeled to what she was doing in the studio, but as time went on, and as she got to know more people And as she got to know the needs of our coverage area, she wanted to be involved in doing something to help other people in these various areas that she had been introduced to through her television program.
Betty Thompson and I went out to eat a long, long time ago. And I asked her, what should I do to get more involved in television? And she had a lot of helpful advice. And that's the one thing about Betty, and anybody who knows Betty personally, is that she gave so much of herself to others.
When I was a little child, I would watch her as Miss Betty. And people said to me, you know, how are you going to replace Miss Betty? And I didn't replace Miss Betty. I simply followed her. She was Romp Room. She was the station.
One piece of advice that she gave me that stuck with me over the years, and she took me aside one day. I was upset about something. I'd always run to Betty. It was like running to Mom and saying, Betty, I've got a problem. Help me. And I blubbered on about something. And she just looked at me and she said, look, Diane, she said, I've been in this business a long time, and this is what you need to know. This is the stuff you worry about, and this is the stuff you don't worry about. And she said to me, this problem you have today, it's not important, so just forget about it.
When she locked onto something, like that was it. She was like a bulldog and a pork chop. She just stuck to it and carried the thing right through. That was one of the qualities that she had. And she liked this business. She had a real passionate love affair with television.
And she was a wonderful idea person. I mean, Betty didn't like to follow through. She didn't have time to follow through because there was too many ideas happening. And the ideas would flow, and she had people willing to follow through on all those ideas.
Well, anyone who ever had the pleasure of meeting Betty Thompson has their own warm memories of a truly remarkable woman. It might be from a community project or a fundraising event, having some fun during Romper Room, or just sharing a cup of coffee with Betty and her guests on TV some morning. Betty Thompson was a good friend to all of us, and she'll be greatly missed.
Star Sports Final with Tom Rafferty.
Here are the headlines in tonight's sport news.
Tom Rafferty was doing the show. It was called Wally Walrus. You remember that?
Wally Walrus, that was it. Right. And when they shut down during the commercials, he'd take his costume off. He was a person. He was a person. Wally Walrus was a human being, folks.
Try to picture a sportscaster today playing a walrus. It boggles the mind. But when CKCO was young, everyone did everything.
I started in September of 1955, and my first job here was as an announcer. When you were an announcer, you did any number of things that happened to be going on at the time. You did weather, you did sports. On occasion, you did news. You sat in the booth to say, this is CKCO-TV. It was an 8-hour shift. And on a weekend, maybe on a Sunday, that's all you did. You waited every half hour to say, this is CKCO-TV, as nicely as you could.
April 15th, 1957. I came here from CKOC Radio in Hamilton, where I'd been for 3 years. And the reason I came here, not that I was unhappy in Hamilton, but my wife and I went to a Hamilton Tiger Cat football game one Saturday afternoon, and we sat up fairly high in the stands at what was known as Civic Stadium then, and we were able to look out beyond the stands over the residential area that the stadium was located in, and there was just a forest of TV antennas sticking up on all the houses. And I thought, you know, that medium has got to be the coming thing. Maybe I should look into it.
1967 was when I started. At that time, I was a news reporter, and I was doing sports on the side. And if you didn't have a photographer at that time, you went out and shot your own stuff. Or if the photographer, and we were doing a lot of film work then, came back with a story, and there was no one there to cut it, you sat down and you cut the story yourself. You wrote the story and thought nothing of it. But you had a chance to do a lot of things and to increase your knowledge of the industry.
Well, we did station breaks, we did voiceover commercials, we did live commercials, we introduced late movie programs, we went out and did feature interviews out at farm fairs and fall fairs and things of that nature. There was no great hue and cry about a news person doing a commercial was somehow compromising his integrity as a news person. There was no great fear about that. There were only 5 or 6 announcers on staff anyway, and you had to kind of spread the work around a little bit.
Downstairs in what is now our cafeteria was the bar of the Concordia Club. Most of the week was fine. On Friday and Saturday, it got a little wild down there. The band was playing, and the odd time, someone would be downstairs imbibing, and all of a sudden they'd appear on the set when you were doing your show.
But I don't suppose any of us thought of ourselves as being celebrities. We just happened to have a job in television where people could see what we did, and they could recognize us, and generally the recognition was pleasant, and people were friendly. But I don't think we looked upon ourselves as media stars in any way, shape, and form. First of all, we weren't being paid star wages, so that kind of eliminated any thought that you were a big shot.
I don't think when you're a kid, when you're watching TV, you never relate to the fact that, well, it's a local guy, or it's a guy who's on national TV, or it's a big star. You just relate to these people as, wow, that guy's on TV. So I remember walking in here and going, oh, there's Gary McLaren. Oh, smokes, there's Ron Johnson. I'm going to work for Bill Inkall. Oh, gee. So I always thought it was kind of neat.
Bill Inkall knows you can't count on fame. On loan to CTV during the 1976 Olympics, he was having a casual conversation with megastars Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward one morning.
And at that time, you know how you glance over and you see people looking over, and then they'd huddle close and they'd talk. And so anyway, the upshot of the whole thing was they got up and started to come over. And I said, I think somebody has recognized you. They're probably coming over for an autograph. Well, this couple walked right by the Newmans, and they said, aren't you from Kitchener? And I said, yeah. They said, aren't you the guy that does bowling for dollars?
When I first started working here in 1976, one of the fun things for me was being able to kind of get out and do a little more than just be a person who, you know, presents the sports every night, which I love doing. But yeah, I hosted History Canada, that high school history show, I think for 3 or 4 years. There was a camping show with one of our ex-reporters here, Kelly Crow, who's now out west with the CBC, which we did 18 episodes of.
But there was room by then for specialists too at CKCO.
Well, I started back in 1977 at the end of August. They were looking for someone who was going to replace Roy Maxwell. Roy was moving on to another station. And I think their search involved looking for someone from a farm with a farm background, someone with a degree in agriculture, preferably from the University of Guelph, and thirdly, the potential to become a farm broadcaster. I guess I sort of filled that bill.
When I graduated from university in the spring, summer of 1985, of course I was looking for full-time work. I had been working at CKCO part-time for 4 years while I was at school, and I came up with an idea for a television program, and I approached the program director. He gave me the opportunity to produce a weekly half-hour news and current affairs program, and I in turn gave him the title of the show and the format, and basically the whole nature and flavor and the direction. It was a wonderful experience.
The people, the viewers out there, want to have a chance to identify with the station, and they want some information, they want some programming that answers their need. Agricultural programming, I think it's very important, especially to a station like ours, because we are in an urban area, but it's an agricultural urban area, if I can call it that. We're close to farm communities, and our broadcast area covers all sorts of farm communities across the southwestern and central part of the province. And I think that it's very important that we serve that market need.
Oh, I think it's our mandate to serve you know, the people who watch us. You know, you can see a Blue Jays game anywhere. But some of the things that happen in our backyard and in our neighborhood, which are very important to the people that it affects, I think are the things that we want to continue to try and get out and do.
That's the one thing that we can do that nobody else in that 500-channel universe can do, and that's talk about things that are happening right here at home. That's what many people are vitally interested in every day. What's happening in their communities? That's the future, I think, for local broadcasters.
At the core of CKCO's philosophy is local programming. programming that reflects the communities in our coverage area and reflects the interests of our viewers.
Looking back 40 years, doesn't it seem like only yesterday when you welcomed us into your home and we shared a view of the changing world, and we hope to share it with you for the next 40 years.
And that completes our 10th annual Schneider's Search for Talent contest here in the Drayton Arena. We'll be back in just a moment to announce the winners.
Come with me, we're going to the treehouse.
There you are.
Woo-wee!
Ladies and gentlemen, the Jeff Healey Band.
Well, that's it for our first 40. We hope you've enjoyed the time we've shared with you over the years, and we hope you'll be here to help us celebrate the next 40. In the meantime, stay tuned. Great things are happening on CKCO.
Jingle bells and snow, and a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Da-da-da-da-da. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride a one-horse. Wasn't that great, Santa?